So it's 5:30. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. So welcome to the CUSD Board of Education School Board meeting of January 7th, 2021. First item on the agenda is the flag salute. Jeff, would you do the honors?
Please rise for the flag salute.
We'll just go ahead and stay seated.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Moving on then to item 1.2, board agenda approval. Could I get a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Satish. And may I have a second?
I second.
Thanks, Phyllis. All right. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. All right. Motion passes 5-0. So we're going to go on to the closed session here shortly. But item 2.1, public comments on closed sessions. Leslie, do we have any comments from the public on this?
I will double check. I do not think so. No, we do not.
All right, so then the board is going to go into closed session here for items 3.1 and 3.2. We anticipate returning at around 6 p.m. So see you all later. Thank you. Members returning from closed session. Thank you for staying with us. Apologies for the, this ran on a little longer than we had anticipated. So I think, do we have, let's see, I see 4 folks. Okay, all right. Great, I think we are back. Let me make sure I have all my colleagues here. All right, thank you. Thank you everyone for waiting. We're reconvening back to open session from closed session. Item 5, there's nothing, we don't have anything to report out from closed session. So then moving on to item 6, which is the classified employee of the month. So let's see, so let me get my sheet up here. So today we're here to honor the classified employee of the month, Vita Bazzotti from Lawson Middle School. And I'm going to read the citation that we have here for Vita. So Vita is an amazing, caring, dedicated, and knowledgeable IT specialist who seems to work around the clock. Whenever a tech issue arises, we all run to, text, and call Vita, and she's always there to support, exhibiting more patience than a saint and more humor and goodwill than almost anyone else. Vita has been immensely instrumental in the implementation of all tech norms during distance learning. With the demands for IT support increasing astronomically, Vita rises to the challenge of taking care of our over 80+ staff, ensuring that they have the tech, apps, and support to teach successfully. She responds quickly and keeps us updated of all tech-related matters and added training and new apps as needed. Vita also supports the over 1,000 students with all of their tech needs, working over and above to connect with parents so their students can continue to learn during distance learning. It is a daunting job for one person, and Vita handles it with grace and patience. She always has a calm demeanor and great attitude. We cannot say enough about her strength, integrity, and empathy. We love our Vita. Vita is incredibly dedicated to the Lawson staff and students. She works tirelessly to ensure every staff and student has access to the apps and online materials needed to help them succeed. She's kind, caring, flexible, dependable, and she's super approachable and always ready to assist. She's a crucial member of our Lawson staff, we would be struggling, lost even, without her during this distance learning time. Her welcoming and positive attitude helped make Lawson a happier place to work. Everyone matters to Vida. Even with her heavy workload, if anyone had a tech issue, she would find the time to help. She is the most giving person and a pleasure to work with. She's not defined by stress or circumstances, but always professional, kind, and willing to help. She truly deserves this honor. And so this is a citation submitted by the Lawson staff. And I understand that we have Kit Bragg here, principal of Lawson, here to say a few words about Vida.
Yes, I am. Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
We sure can. Welcome, Kit.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. I know I speak for all of Lawson when I say we are honored to celebrate Vida Bizzatti as CUSD's Classified Employee of the Month. I often say to staff and the community in my messaging that Lawson represents the very best our profession has to offer, and Vida exemplifies this notion. I first met Vida when I was a teacher, long before I became principal at Lawson, and I was so impressed with her selfless dedication to our staff and students. I had the opportunity to pilot one-to-one laptop use in my English language arts classroom, and she and I worked regularly together to make a significant shift in the way we use technology in the classroom. Later, she went on to partner with Jeff Bowman, former Lawson principal, to fully implement single device use for all students. Not only did she tirelessly work to support the daily use of the technology, keeping thousands of devices in working order, she also took a vested interest in best practices for the use of technology and was involved in planning and implementing professional development. Last March, we found ourselves in a most unprecedented situation of having to move all of our students to distance learning. She was an anchor racing against very choppy waters. We successfully launched a distance learning platform days after shuttering our buildings and worked to transition to an even more robust program over the summer in order to launch a full academic year in distance learning. Vida was always there to support staff, parents, and students. She kept things moving with determination and always a positive attitude. And for that, I'm truly grateful. Vida is incredibly conscientious. I can remember countless times sitting in our offices after she developed any number of technology plans, whether it was for statewide testing or a new rollout of digital materials. And I'd assure her she thought of every angle and removed every roadblock. She cares deeply for our staff and students, and it was evident in her concern that things needed to run smoothly. Conscientious, thoughtful, collaborative, humble, dedicated. These are just a few of the words we use to describe Vida. To close, I'd like to couple two thoughts about Vida. First, she was always taking a walk on her break with staff members. She cares deeply for her physical and emotional health. This was a way for her to break free from the screen, move her body, and connect with a friend. Secondly, I remember back in those early conversations when I was a teacher, and Vida found out that I loved Bob Dylan. I think I had a Times They Are Changing poster in my classroom. Her son had taken an interest in music at that point, so music became woven into our early conversations. So in celebrating Vida tonight, and thinking back on my many fond memories of our interactions, I would capture her spirit with this Bob Dylan lyric. May God bless and keep you always. May your wishes all come true. May you always do for others and let others do for you. May you build a ladder to the stars and climb on every rung, and may you stay forever young. Thank you, Vida. Your Lawson community loves you.
Thank you, Kit. Thank you. That's very well said. And thank you for sharing this extra insights about Vida. And do we have Vida with us tonight? Can we, Vida, there you are. We see you on the camera. So if you would grace us with a few words, very much appreciated.
Thank you so much, Kit. Thank you for all these beautiful things you said. I appreciate it, and all teachers and staff saying all these good things for me. It's really an honor to have this award. It really means so much to me. Lawson is a place to that everyone cares for others, and it really feels like a family. And you know, I enjoy being working with such a beautiful staff, and helping teachers, staff, and students. I can't wait to see them in person. It really I enjoyed every part of, talking to them, helping, the students. Thanks everyone. And I also want to say how thankful I am to work with such a wonderful IT and tech specialist group, because we together, we could, help all the students and the staff. And again, I'm lucky to work at Lawson, lucky to work with such a good people. And again, thanks.
Well, thank you, Vida. On behalf of the board, I really like to thank you for your help and contribution to the Lawson community and for CUSD in doing it with such grace. And we're really honored to have an opportunity here to recognize and celebrate you and what you do for us. It's you who make Lawson and CUSD such a wonderful place. Thank you so very much.
And I do believe we have a public comment.
We do. I am sorry. Yes, so that's okay. If we could, sorry for skipping that. If we could go ahead and welcome the commenter, please.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Mark Lundry.
Okay, Mark, let's see.
Pam will look for you, Mark. You know the spiel. Raise your hand and we'll get you on.
See you on here, Mark. So welcome, Mark.
Hi, thank you, Jerry. It's Mark Lowndy, and I am the SITS, the School Site Instructional Technology Specialist at DeVargas Elementary. I've been in the district for 8 years. Vida was already here at the district when I came to work here, and as I like to say, no SITS is an island. We work across the district as a one big team, and Vida has been enormously giving and enormously insightful, and has been a great help to me personally over the years. And I just wanted to make sure she knew it, and that all of you knew it. Everybody here is listening. Thank you, Vida.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mark. Thank you for taking the time here to share with us how Vida works with the other SITs and helps them also. And again, Vida, thank you very much. I appreciate you being here tonight. I'm very honored to have this opportunity to learn about your work and celebrate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on then to item 7.1, employee organizations. Leslie, just want to check, do we have any representatives from our employee organizations here to speak tonight?
We do not tonight.
All right, great, thank you. Then moving on then to item 8.1, public comments. So this is the portion of the meeting for the public to make comments on items that are not on the agenda. If you would like to comment on an agenda item, we'll take those comments when they come up later in this meeting. There should be a link to comment cards on our website, and I think there's a link that's been posted to chat also. So please fill out the comment card and we'll call on you when it's your turn to speak. Generally, each speaker will get 3 minutes, but we may adjust that time if we have a large number of speakers for each item. And then lastly, please be aware that the provisions of the Brown Act prohibit the board from acting or commenting on items that are not on the agenda. So we will not be responding directly to speakers addressing any comments in section 8.1. However, requests from the public for the board to take up a particular matter in a future board meeting can be referred to staff for consideration. So with that, Leslie, do we have any public comments for section 8.1?
We do not, for things that are not on the agenda.
Excellent, thank you. Then moving right along, item 9, these are the consent items. Could I get a motion for these items, or if anyone would like to pull any of these items for discussion?
I can move 9.1 through 9.8.
Thank you. We have a motion from Lori for approving these 9.1 through 9.8, and may I have a second, please?
Second.
I think I heard Satish. So I'll just take that. So let's go ahead and vote on this. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the consent items are approved on a vote of 5-0. Moving on then to the information.
Jerry,
Yeah.
can I just make a quick comment? I think this is probably out of order, but I was so excited to see the virtual 5th grade science camp on the agenda. As a 5th and 6th grade teacher in Cupertino for many years, I attended science camp, and it's one of the best experiences ever for kids. And I'm so sorry they can't do it in person, but I'm excited that they have that opportunity virtually. So I just wanted to say that it's a wonderful experience for our kids.
Right. Thank you, Phyllis. I would certainly concur with that sentiment, that we have this opportunity this year. Both of my kids went through it. It's a wonderful opportunity for the kids before they leave elementary school. With that, then I'm going to move on to item 10.1, is quarterly report on the uniform complaint. I think it's let's see, who's the presenter on this one? Is this Allison?
We really don't have anything to present because we had no complaints issued. So we're just bringing a clean report to the board.
Excellent. That's what we like to see. Thank you. And then 10.2 is another information presentation on the draft resolution for the parcel tax. So let's see. So would that be Stacy and Jeff?
So thank you. So I'll let Jeff go ahead and bring up the copy of the draft resolution. Tonight, we're bringing forward the draft resolution for your consideration for our potential ballot measure that would be placed on the May 2021 ballot. This would be the replacement parcel tax. It would replace our current $250 measure A with a additional $148, making it a total of a $398 8-year parcel tax. And so we have the draft resolution that would need to be approved at a later meeting, as well as the ballot language, and really just wanted to have an opportunity for the board to review and see if there's any adjustments that we could take back before we bring it forward. We are operating under somewhat of a timeline in that we would need to get to the Office of the Register of Voters in February. So again, just really wanted to give you an opportunity to look through the draft, make sure that we've captured all the language that we've talked about over the last couple weeks, months, and see where we fall.
Right.
I do have Connell Lind is available as well to help answer any questions, as well as William Tunick, who helped us compose and put together the resolution. So with that, I'll stop and turn it back over to you, Jerry.
Thank you, and welcome, William and Connell. So I'm going to open up the floor to the board, my colleagues here, for clarifying questions. If anybody would like to go first. Okay, I think I see Phyllis. Phyllis, please go ahead.
I don't have clarifying questions. I have a comment. Do you want that now or not?
Let's go ahead and just do that now.
Okay, so in reading over this, it's very wordy and maybe legally it needs to be, but I was hoping that we would really call out the promises that we're going to make to the community in this resolution. That the top of mind would be not closing schools, not increasing class size, more compensation for staff, those things that we've heard so many times over and over again from our community and that we as a board have been so committed to. And while those things are included in this resolution, they're really buried. So I'm wondering if, that's just a wonder that I have, if that's a concern of anybody else's, or if there's any way to fix it, or if all this, the legalese that's in this document has to be there. I just am kind of questioning the document as a whole.
Okay, well, I think that is actually a question, sort of a long one too, Phyllis. But William Connell, would you care to comment on Phyllis's point here in terms of making more clear the promises to the community?
I'll jump in a little bit, but I think I'll let William answer as well, since it's a little bit of a legal part. So there's two parts of it. There's the beginning resolution, and you have all the whereas clauses. And then there's Exhibit B, which is the full ballot text. So Exhibit B is what I believe is the full ballot text that is printed in the booklet. So that's what everybody's going to see when they get the ballot booklet. And I think the terms are fairly well spelled out, but we can certainly, there's room to make it clearer.
Okay.
So,
all right. William, did you have anything to add to this?
Sure, yeah, and I think to answer your question, I know it's a little wordy. A lot of it is legally required, but that tends to be I think not necessarily the sections that the comment was made about. When we talk about the recitals at the very beginning of the document, most of those are not legally required. Those are more just to provide some background. So I think if we want to try to condense those and focus them on those first 2 pages, that's definitely something we could do. And then as Connell was saying, the first page of Exhibit B, which is probably a little bit more concise, but we could look at really, again, kind of hitting the high points there. I think the information kind of in between is a lot of the legal requirements and maybe not what folks are going to focus on is in any event. But yeah, I think that first page of Exhibit B that's showing right there, we could also look, that's a little more concise, but we could look at focusing that as well.
All right, great, thank you. Let's see, anybody else? Lori, please go ahead.
Oh, I think I'm unmuted now. So I just want to make sure that we're consistent between both. And in the whereases, there's calling out the specific, there's one of them that talks about, to Phyllis's point, a little bit far down, but let me scroll back up to where it is. So there's the one that talks about will provide $14 million per year to provide the district. And then the next one says this measure provides funds to help the district to support core academics classes and operate all 25 schools. I'm more comfortable with the language and the part in Exhibit B where we're just saying competitive compensation to help keep schools open, et cetera. So I'd rather just have it be consistent without the number called out between the two, just because I think, we've had many discussions, which the public has been a part of, that we want to, continue to do that. And that, any decisions we have to make in the future around our declining enrollment will be with a very, robust and well thought out process that we will go through. But I do want to be careful that we're just being very transparent that has been our conversation to date, and that, we're not making any sort of, we're not leaving anyone with the impression that for the full 8 years of the life of this parcel tax that we would not move forward with any further planning that we needed to do because of our declining enrollment, over the whole lifespan of that 8 years. So I just want to be careful there, would be my feedback.
Thanks. Any comments on this, Kyle, William? No?
No, I was gonna say, yeah, I think that we can, in concert, we're sort of trying to focus those recitals. We can look back at Exhibit B and try to make those, because Exhibit B is a little bit more concise anyway, just to make both of those consistent. Definitely something we can do.
Great, thank you. Any who'd like to go next?
I will go.
Please, thank you, Satish.
Yeah, so Jerry, yeah, I think I'm pretty okay overall perspective. And I presume it's more for a legal perspective, most of these wordings and stuff like that. But I think it really makes sense when we are really how we are going ahead with the, when you're doing the campaign and stuff like that, probably the insisting the right wordings and things that important. But I think I'm good. I'm happy actually. The Exhibit B talks a lot about most of the things. I think somewhere specifically we are reading, writing, math and science. I don't know whether those things are really needed, but it could be overall stuff because we are not one of the bullet items, protect outstanding core academic programs. Probably that could be good enough. You don't have to be insisting. So like that, it's all more language and English kind of things, what you're putting. But I think overall the message, I'm okay here.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Satish. And then Sylvia, did you have any questions?
Not a question so much as a comment, I guess. So I think for me, the whereas language is fine. I think for me, it's more the Exhibit B that I'm looking at. I guess I'm wondering if we can add a little bit more context there in explaining that that we're one of the lowest funded districts in the state, or explaining that, we're lower than our neighboring districts, just kind of giving a little bit more context to the reader, to the voter, about why we need the funding. So I don't know what the parameters are for what kind of language needs to be put in a measure, like if we're allowed to put kind of, like, I don't know, like, are we allowed to put marketing messaging in there or not? But if possible, to provide some more context for the level of funding we currently have and why we need additional funding. It's not that we're, looking for like excess money, like we actually need that money. So I guess I'm just wondering if we can put more info in there.
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
But William should really answer, but I think that, yeah, we could add a paragraph to give some context.
Yeah, the short answer is there's nothing wrong with factual context in that portion of the measure. And so maybe the takeaway is sort of we need to find that kind of Goldilocks place where we've got a little bit more in B and a little bit less in the whereases, and make sure they're consistent between the two. That seems to kind of be the feedback I'm hearing.
Is it like, do we pay more per word or something like that?
No. If it sent it to another page somehow, but you're not paying by word, no.
Okay. The whereas is the resolution part of it, that doesn't go into the ballot, right? That part is our documentation.
Yes, exactly. But the resolution is essentially the board action,
Yeah.
but asking the measure to be on the ballot and directing kind of all the officials and staff to do what's necessary to call the election. It is considered part of sort of the agreement with the voters, so you still want it to be consistent, obviously, but it doesn't show up in the ballot materials.
Right. Okay.
But you're correct that Exhibit B does.
Right. Yeah, so I think I would just want Exhibit B to be as informative as possible and educational as possible in helping the voter to understand the context in which we're asking them to vote yes.
I think we can do that. I think we'd be able to add a paragraph or two right at the beginning above terms, but I'll defer to William on, the location or where, but I can work with him, work with staff on developing that.
Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you, Sylvia. Let's see, for myself, I guess two questions. First is around the date. At the last board meeting, we had talked about, I don't think we had settled, we had talked about May or June, and I see here now, we've selected May 4th, which as I understand is the county recommended one. I was wondering if you guys could say a few words about if that's in case, is that the one that potentially might be the cheaper one? Maybe there are other elections. And what's the thinking that went behind selecting May 4th as a date, as opposed to some other dates in May or June?
May 4th is an established election date. So there are certain established, what are called established election dates that the county and the state go by. So May 4th is an established election date for a vote by mail ballot. The June date would probably be available, but it is not on their calendar. So we would have to go through some motions to make sure that we're doing that. And the overall goal is to make sure that the parcel tax would have to be placed, before June 30th in order to be effective by July 1st. Right. So we're really working with the dates that are legally available.
Got it. Okay. And then the second question is let's see. So I guess I concur with the point that some of my colleagues, especially Phyllis, made, I think, around wanting to really emphasize, the promise to the voters. And so I know in the ballot, in sort of the pamphlet, the booklet, right, we have the full measure, and then there's also a sort of the proponents and opponents, sort of that section. The page is divided into sort of 4 quadrants. So this is that. Who would write that? Is that also this group? Is it you guys, or has not that been determined yet?
That hasn't been determined yet, but it would likely be this group. But the resolution calls, that's the ballot arguments that you're talking about. So after the district files, the county then sets a date. I believe February 11th is the date for a ballot argument. Okay. And so, so we would probably write that in cahoots with I'm not sure exactly who, but between us and the superintendent and the board, we'd probably have a draft, and then you have 5 people that could sign that, 5 registered voters in the district with titles who sign that. And then if there is an argument against, then that leads to doing a rebuttal argument.
Right. All right. Well, thanks. Thanks for the clarification, Connell. So I think we do have a public comment. So if there are no other clarifying questions, Lori, please. Go ahead.
I do have one more. So when you were talking about the dates, Connell, I thought we had the potential for sort of picking our own date based on some criteria that we would have to meet for which Tuesday, but that we might be able to pick a later date in May. Have we determined that that's not the case?
That's not my understanding. My understanding was we were really looking at that May date and then potentially the June date, but the June date was not, I think William could address that. I think the June date would be available, but it wasn't listed as a date on the county website. So
Yeah, the June one isn't appealing just because it's right after Memorial Day weekend and we'd lose our prime.
well, it's also, I think it's the last day of school as well.
Yeah, but I thought there was some criteria we could maybe meet that would allow us to go out on a different Tuesday in May.
I
Did
thought
that-
there would be an additional cost if we selected a different date than the one established by the county, that if we did choose a different date in May, it could be a possibility, but it would be at an additional cost.
Okay,
I don't know if that's for certain.
Just to make way, and I mean, as Connell was saying, that the May 4th date is an established mail-in ballot date. There's some language in the elections code that suggests that in some cases you may be able to actually call an election pretty much any Tuesday that's not after a state holiday. But again, you know, in working with the county and the registrar's office, it's always it's definitely beneficial to try to be consistent with what they're used to doing, and also as mentioned the cost savings if there's going to be other elections running on that day, which is more likely on that day than any other Tuesday in May. That would probably help reduce the cost for the district.
All right, great, thanks. All right, so I think I understand we do have a public comment. So Leslie, I'll turn this over to you then to call on our commenters, speakers.
Great, I was just checking again and we only have one. So our public comment is from Atul Apt. So Atul, if you would please raise your hand. There we go.
All right, welcome Atul.
Hi, thanks everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for your time. So I just just a quick couple of comments. So I see in the draft language, it just says keep schools open and it doesn't say keep all schools open. I know we had discussed this before, like at the end of the previous year. And so that's something that came to mind. I don't know if that's just a play on words, but you know, I would appreciate if that is clarified. And the other part is, I think I heard Laurie comment that that the commitments that have been put in there right now probably are also too much or something along those lines, because there have been discussions about things that can be done because of enrollment. And I think that kind of concerns me a little bit, because that is exactly opposite to what the community has been asking, a lot of people in the community. So I would say if again, a lot of these things have been discussed before, if we really want to put something saying we won't close schools for financial reasons, and if we do decide to close them, then this is the commitment we give to the community, that we will formally have this particular process. I don't think saying that we will have a thought out process the next time is consolation because of what happened a few months back. So I don't think that will work. But it's okay to say that we cannot give the commitment, but if we do decide to close schools for non-financial reasons, this is the exact process that we will follow. And so that, so there's no deviation at all. I think short of that, there's going to be very little trust in actually getting support behind this parcel tax, to be honest. At this point, I've noticed that there is requests coming in to the various HSCs and PTAs for funds and volunteers and things like that. And I don't think that's going to go very far, to be honest, when we see this kind of stuff. The commitment, I think, is the one thing we've been asking for really strongly. And I'm still not seeing that. And I think that's a big concern. So I hope you all hear that out. And thanks for your time.
Thank you, Atul. Leslie, do we have any other speakers?
We do not on this item.
Okay, I'm going to then bring the discussion back to the board here. Maybe just another quick go around to see if anybody else had any other questions or comments for Stacy, William, or Connell. So Phyllis, did you have anything?
No, I'm good, thanks.
All right, Lori, we're just going by the same order as before. Hope that's all right.
No, I don't have anything else to add. I've given my feedback, so.
Thank you. And then Satish?
Yeah, I think probably after hearing also, I think having a little bit more precise some more things rather than open-ended would be good, especially the wordings. I think this is one of the comments also what we heard now. So I think one of the very selling point here is I think the school open part of it always. I think if it is a little bit more rather than just an open-ended, it'll be great actually. So take a look into see that how the language can be made better. That's it.
So are we discussing?
I put a suggestion, my comment.
Yeah, so maybe let's go around and then we can add other comments.
Yeah.
That's
that's only comment. I think Rastal, as I said, I think we have captured in this exhibit B has everything captured. My view. I think some more precision is needed. That's it, fine tuning.
And then Sylvia, do you have any questions or thoughts to add?
No additional.
Thank you. And then for myself, and I suspect Lori, then I'll yield the floor to you. Maybe I'll just, I think the sense I get from the speaker's comments is that he's asking about tighter language or maybe a more restrictive language, or not restrictive isn't maybe the right term here, but in terms of being more specific about keeping all schools open. And I know we've talked about certain conditions and such. And so I wanted to, I'm sure that went into your considerations in drafting the language. Wanted to kind of get both of your comments. Any thoughts on, is there a difference in saying keeping all schools open? What does that mean? And all that. Given that, and that may not necessarily be the intent of the board, and I'll let Lori comment after this, but I'd like to kind of get your thoughts on sort of what are your thoughts in going into drafting this language here on these areas. Connor or William?
I'm going to let William take this.
I noticed William was on mute. That's why I was looking at you, Connor. Okay.
That was my attempt to get Connell to go first. It didn't work. Yeah, but I think it just highlights the point. You want to be clear about what the board is saying with the resolution, right? I mean, and I think and I think it was pointed out before that inconsistency between the whereas statements and what we've got in Exhibit B, where we talk about helping to prevent school closures and helping to keep schools open. I think that's always, to be honest, with any parcel tax measure, even a bond measure. I mean, that's something that we try to pay close attention to, which is trying to provide enough specifics so that voters understand what they're voting on, but at the same time realizing that this is something that can't be, the wording of this is fixed once the voters approve it. And it's going to be that way for as long as it remains there. So you also want to make sure that it provides the flexibility that a board needs to react to whatever happens in the future, because we don't know what's going to happen for the next 8 years. So when in drafting these, we try to usually, again, provide as much clarity as you can, but also without completely taking away any flexibility unless the board is providing that direction.
Understand. Connell, do you have anything else to add?
No, I'd say that's very clear that we want to make sure the board had the direction.
Okay. All right. So then, Lori, I'll go ahead and yield the floor to you.
I think William just hit on it. My concern would be that I very much understand, some of the sentiment that's out there from some of our current parents. And I think we've discussed that at some length over the last several months. I also think that it would be irresponsible of us to put tight language that would bind us to something for 8 years that is not a condition that is what's in the best interest of this district, which is what I feel like we're charged to do. So, my concern would be to align the two, but to not put in specifically, I would be okay to, I'm sorry, I don't remember which one of my colleagues raised it about, for financial reasons, I would be okay, with, if that's the language that needs to be in there, then I'm okay with that. But I don't think that we should be I think the language that's in Part B right now about to help keep schools open is absolutely a pledge that we have made to this community and that we will continue to try and live by. I also think that to put something in so specific as to limit us for the next 8 years would not be a good decision for us to make. It's just my opinion. So that would be my reflection back on what I heard.
Thank you.
And I do think too, if I may share, is that we could address it. You know, we've had the conversations about declining enrollment is a separate issue that we'll continue to talk about and address, and bringing back some, you know, policy outside of what the parcel tax is that really covers how will we address declining enrollment separate from a budget issue. And so we could look at moving forward as keeping them two separate and still keeping our commitment to the community, still involving the community in any decisions that are made as we address the declining enrollment in those future years.
Thank you. And I see Satish.
Yeah, so I think just in line with what Lori said, I want to continue there. So I think I'm not here to make it less flexible. I think I agree that we do not want to have a tight control on those things and make you know, not at all flexible. That's not the idea. But I think that financial part of it, what she mentioned, is good. Basically, we don't. My point here is we do not want to just keep it an open ended thing to have it a too flexible part of it. I think we can tighten that a little bit more, and especially like as she said, like the financial part of it, which we can probably modify with that, because I think that's the idea, right? And declining enrollment and other challenges are separate by itself. But I think for the financial reasons, we shouldn't be going for it. That's why we are going for a parcel tax to get more money and to make sure the financial part has been taken care of it. I think that can be spelled out here by fine tuning that. This is my suggestion.
Thank you, Satish. Phyllis or Sylvia? No? Okay. I'll just add that I agree with everything I've heard from Lori, Satish, and Stacy, which is I don't think it's the intent of the board, and please speak up if I'm misrepresenting my colleagues here, that we were saying that under any circumstance will we not ever close schools, and therefore it's clear that the language should not reflect that. I think what we had said, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is that we do make a commitment to keep schools open or not close them for financial reasons. I think whatever wording, Lori said it really well. I forget exactly what the wording was. I felt that was appropriate, and I think that's what I heard Satish reflect on also, and also Stacy in sort of really making the differentiation between the two issues. So I just add a +1 to that my input would be to adjust the language to sort of reflect that. It's a nuance, but I think it's an important nuance for our community that we're not saying we're not going to touch these schools, but we're not going to do it for financial reasons. Did I represent, I think Lori, what I heard from you? I think I echoed what you said pretty much. So just adding a +1 to it. All right then, so let's see. This is an information presentation. So I guess there's really not any sort of direction other than this will be coming back for a vote at the next board meeting then, Stacy?
Yeah, so we'll take the suggestions, the comments, and we'll incorporate it. And I'll work with William and Connell and our campaign committee, and we can make those adjustments. And then I could actually bring it back as a discussion action item at the next board meeting so that we have a chance to talk about it before I'm taking the action on it.
That sounds good. Is that good with everyone? Okay. Yes. Thank you. All right. And thank you, Connell. Thank you, William.
All right, hold on.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sylvia, please.
So I guess if we're talking about ballot language, I guess I get a little concerned if we're adding additional text to that, only just from a marketing point of view. I don't want to add more language that makes it more confusing. So I don't know what staff is going to come back with, but you know, like I guess my caution would be whatever it is that you're coming back with. I mean, I like it the way it is. I feel like we've stated publicly in multiple times, you know, that, you know, what we've said, the intent is to keep schools open. The intent is to not close schools for financial reasons. You know, I don't know that we need to put it in this ballot measure and add additional language that might just be confusing for voters and create more confusion. I guess that I get a little concerned.
Sure. If I could ask a clarification, Sylvia, when you say ballot language, are you thinking exhibit sort of the 75 word ballot, or are you thinking about exhibit B, the full ballot text? Or when you say ballot language, could you kind of maybe clarify, are you thinking that small section, this whatever, or are you thinking the multi-page one? Or the resolution that we passed, which is Exhibit A. Because there's a couple of different things.
I'm thinking Exhibit B. Isn't it Exhibit B the ballot?
Yes, Exhibit B is the full ballot measure.
Yeah,
right.
the ballot. So I'm thinking whatever it is that the voters are looking at. That's what.
So that's the ballot question. So under terms on Exhibit B, under terms, that first question, that's the actual 75-word question that people actually vote on. So I don't think we were looking at really tweaking that. It was more tweaking the explanations. But if you're just looking at the question that voters get, if they see nothing else, it's that question: to retain our high quality teachers. That's the question. That's the 75-word question.
I see. Okay.
So if there's tweaks to that, we need to be very careful in terms of making sure that, that's the summary question.
Okay. So
it can't exceed 75 words. The name of the school district actually counts as one word. I think it's a little bit less than 75 words right now.
I think we have 2 words to play with. I think we're at 73.
Okay. So that's not what we're talking
about. But I think
it wasn't my intent to say we should change that. So I just want to make that clear.
Okay.
I wasn't suggesting we change that ballot question. So
what is it that you guys are suggesting to change?
Somewhere in the multi-page ballot measure, the rest of Exhibit B, where to add a little bit more clarification somewhere. So, but not the ballot language itself. So I just wanted to, but
like the bullet point part, the underneath that part.
I hadn't thought about where, but somewhere in Exhibit B, I guess.
Yeah, and I think part of it was Sylvia, you had commented about wanting maybe a more of an explanation about where we're funded as a school district. So we would need to weave that into the area somewhere. I don't foresee us adding a lot of word to it. We'll go back and also relook at the whereases if there's any of the whereases in the resolution. I know one of you had made the comment about there seemed to be a lot of wordiness in the whereases. So I don't foresee us coming back with a longer document. It may be more condensed.
Okay, I guess the thing I'm looking at, because it's on the screen, is the bullet points. And so right now where I see the keep schools open, it's just very clear right there. And I think the clearness is good, and it's simple and it's direct, and I don't want to make it more confusing by adding more words there. I guess that's my preference, but like if you can come up with something that doesn't make it more confusing, then go for it. But I guess that's kind of my concern.
Yeah, I think personally I concur with that. I think for me it's just having a language somewhere in Exhibit B, and
I agree.
Looking to mess up the clean bullets there. So I think we agree on this, Sylvia. So yeah. Okay. Sort of I kind of get now flipping back and forth. I wish I could see more than 6 thumbnails here per, but are we good then? Any other comments on this item?
So we will anyhow, Jerry, I think let's get an updated version anyway. We will discuss that, and we can fine tune it. I think I definitely would like to see some changes there, and then we can discuss about that. But I think we know what the changes are, at least based on all these discussions. Hope it not be very complicated, but as long as the message is conveyed clearly, and definitely voters they understood what it is, then I think that level of commitment is there.
Right.
I think it's very clear.
Okay, great. And Phyllis, please.
Yeah, I just want to plus one Sylvia's comment about confusion. And I know everybody knows this, but I think it's worth saying again. Voters that are confused vote no. So I think the confusion factor is huge. We have to make sure we don't confuse voters with the language.
Makes a lot of sense. I would agree with that. Okay, all right then. With that, then I will move on. Thank you, Connell. Thank you, William, for being here with us tonight to answer our questions. And thank you for your work on this. This is really important for our district, future our district. Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, great. So let's move on to then item let's see, 10.3. So that's the first reading of the board policy 1312.3. And so Leslie, you have a presentation for us?
I do not have a presentation, but I was going to just give you a little bit of background information on this policy. We haven't brought you policies to review or update for a while, so expect them to be coming your way. This is one that is actually often revised based on new state and federal guidelines. And so what Sandy has done for you is she's put in the top the reason why, what the recommendation is from CSBA. And really in a nutshell, the modifications are based on new federal regulations, new state regulations. And then what they did is they reorganized. So you're going to see a lot of crossouts and then a lot of red. But basically what they've done is they have rewritten and reorganized so that it is in alignment and matches the federal program monitoring instrument. And it's basically how the federal government, it's sort of their checklist that they go through to ensure that money is being spent in accordance with the law. And so they've aligned it so their checklist matches 1 through, I want to say it's 18 or so. What we have done is we've removed some of the numbers that don't apply to us because we are not a high school district. And that's basically the changes that have taken place. So it's boilerplate from CSBA. It aligns to our practices. And yeah, I think that's it. And so wondering if you have questions or comments for this item.
All right, great. I'll bring this to the board here. Let's see. So Phyllis, any? No? Okay.
I have nothing. Thank you.
Okay, Lori?
I didn't have anything on this read either.
Right. Satish?
No, Jerry, thank you.
Okay, and then Sylvia?
I'm good.
Okay, I don't have anything either. And so with the process then to bring this back for approval next time, Leslie?
It would be, and if you're okay with it, we would bring it back as a consent item.
Yeah, I think so.
Suggest that, yeah.
Great. All right, terrific. Thank you. And thank you, Leslie.
Sure.
Great. So let's moving on then to item 11, discussion. So 11.1, reopening of the school update. So Stacy and Allison, over to you.
All right. Thank you. So I'll get us started, and then I'm going to hand it off to Allison, Carrie, and Leslie. You'll all have a piece tonight. And, we continue to monitor and adjust as new information comes out. We are still kind of waiting for some clarification on the most recent announcement from Governor Newsom. We know that he has created a new reopening plan and getting some of that clarification. We are still holding our course and following our 4-phase approach. We've made some modifications under the phases as we've continued to try to work towards bringing our students back to in-person instruction as soon as possible and always adhering to our health and safety. We have been able to operate some of our learning hubs over these last couple of weeks and are learning from that. We continue to visit our sites to prepare them for students. And so really are feeling like we're making progress. It's unfortunate that our county is still in the midst of seeing some of the surge of our COVID cases, and our ICUs are at capacity. And so we do monitor daily as to what's going on. And we'll always have that focus of what's best for our students and staff and maintaining that health and safety. We're very fortunate that we do have a very robust, strong distance learning program. Even with that, we continue to learn and look at how we can better and adjust to make improvements to our distance learning while still ensuring that education is going on for students. So I do want to give a huge thank you to Allison in the Ed Services Department, and for Carrie Ito, who's done a tremendous amount of work as we actually were able to kick off our employee COVID testing in December, and are learning as we're going and making improvements and modifications as we go. So I am going to turn it over to Allison, Carrie, and Leslie.
Thank you, Stacy. So in this presentation tonight, we want to give you updates on the items that are listed here. We want to give you a glimpse of what's happening at the hubs. We have some photo and video and information to share with you to help you see how that's coming along. And then we will be reflecting back the feedback that we heard from you at the prior meeting. We want to check our thinking on that as we are continuing to prepare the next set of schedules to bring to you at the meeting on January 21st. So at the end of the presentation, we'll ask for your feedback on those recommendations as well as any of the updates as we're going. So going to the next slide, we are continuing to operate using our 4-phase framework. Our learning hubs that we'll be sharing you are part of phase 2. And we are in the planning process of finalizing schedules and plans for phase 3. So Carrie is going to join me for this section here, and we can click on that slides link there at the top, and I'll turn it over to Carrie to introduce this set of information.
I should probably turn on my video and unmute myself before I begin. Hello, thank you very much for having me tonight. I'm here to share with the board and everybody a little bit what's happening and what phase 2 looks like in our school district. As you all know, this is about the phase 2 plan. You're going to hear more information about phase 3, but we are here just to, this part of the presentation is about phase 2, what we're doing currently. As you all know, you've seen this timeline, it's very familiar to you, and our hubs began on November 4th. After much planning and preparations, we were able to open up on Wednesday, starting on November 4th. As you well know, because this was shared with you before, we started with a very clear criteria in that the children needed to fit in all 3 buckets in order to be asked or invited to our program. And so just wanted just to quickly review that the 3 areas that we went through and the priority groups: at risk of academic and or mental health help, and at risk and due to low engagement. So we looked at those and we started gathering lists and preparing to re-enter school. So just so you know, the numbers next to all the school names are indicating how many classrooms are open in each of those schools and how many classrooms we opened to service kids in. And remember that the maximum number of students we could have in any of those classes is 14. Most of the classes are not quite up to 14, but we are currently working and we continue to work as we're finding kids with more needs develop. We're beginning to invite more kids or kids that are able to attend. We've also done that. You will see that we've put asterisks. I put asterisks next to some of the schools because that's where our special education classes are also occurring. We have children at Collins that are visually impaired program that we're providing. And that program is a little bit different than the other hubs. We are actually running that on a 4-day schedule. So they go Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday to get their support that they can otherwise not do. It's pretty hard to do online learning when you have a visual impairment. So they're there at school with all the equipment and support services that they need. And then we have at both Eisenhower and Miller, we have both our moderate, severe, mild, moderate, and moderate to severe classes running. And then at West Valley, you'll see an indication with no classroom because we're using that as an assessment site so that we can do our special education assessments. What we have found over time is that our attendance has fluctuated over time despite lots and lots of phone calls and stuff. But what we've noticed is as our district moved into the purple tier, many families have decided that they are choosing not to go have their children come. And in other cases, due to the new travel quarantine, both that were given us at Thanksgiving time as well as now, many of our children are unable to attend for 2-week period due to traveling. So, you know, attendance has fluctuated, but what I can share with you is that the children that are going are receiving the help that they need and are really excited and delighted to be there. I've been to many of the campuses. The children are smiling. Teachers are happy to see them and greet them. Next slide, please. Just wanted to let you know, tons of preparation went into getting our classrooms ready. And if you walk into a campus that has a hub that's hosted, you will see lots of markings and indications for social distancing signs. The sign that you see on the far left side is a sign that you're going to see all over campus. It's a consistent sign that talks about social distancing, it talks about mask wearing, it talks about visitors and so on. And you'll see a lot of directionality. Some of the things we have to do is make sure that we not only put indications and markings for social distancing, that we also tell families, and not families, but students where they can, and staff where they can enter and what areas they're supposed to exit. Next slide, please. Just so you know, our classrooms look very different right now. These are the requirements that have been put on. And so you'll see that there's washing stations and information in every classroom. You'll see where there's soap and water and paper towels, and we're making sure that that is happening. In classrooms where there aren't sinks, they have hand sanitizers, but students will also be requested to go wash their hands if they look soiled, and then provides hand sanitizers. They exit and enter classrooms. The other thing, one of the requirements is that 6 feet as much as practical, but we are doing the 6 feet distancing. So you'll see that our desks, when set up, and chairs when set up, they're 6 feet apart from one another, and they're also 6 feet away from wherever the teacher would be standing. We've provided lots of staff training from the very beginning, making sure that our staff know how to handle symptom checks, and the idea that we are doing symptom checks right now. That we've given them training about face masks and how to handle when students don't show up with a face mask, or when students need assistance with face masks. They've all been provided training, and they've provided their kids training on proper hand hygiene. How do we wash our hands properly? Not just quick run under the faucet, but it's that 20 seconds really of that scrubbing and all over. We've done lots of training with our students as well as staff to monitoring social distancing. If you notice here, this is a picture of student supplies. Every child has their own student supplies. So we've gotten rid of the days where we can share equipment. We can put all the crayons in a container and we can all share them. So every child during this program has been provided their own trays and their own supplies. And then we've also done training on snack breaks and what social distancing looks like that, as well as training our staff on the difference between when we're doing first aid in the classroom, when the child needs to be sent to the health office, or when a child needs to be sent to an isolation room due to having a symptom that's developed during the day. So far, we haven't had any of those instances, so we've been good. We welcome students every morning, and what you see in this image right here is you'll see the active temperature checks and symptom checks. Those are 2 of our principals, Mrs. Bakel and Mr. Prohodko, that are doing that right there. And then what you'll also see is the kids arrive to class, as they arrive to school, they are been assigned a location that also provides social distancing. You can't really see it in this picture, but you can see the kids in the background where they're all 6 feet apart from one another. So everybody's being assigned and in a location to go so that they know where to go. And we are aware and make sure to ensure that they are social distance at all time. And you can't see in this picture, but you'll see that they're all wearing masks. But we also have our staff out there ready to greet them, so they're not all just standing out there staring at one another. Next slide, please. In here, our new, this is a picture of we are doing some targeted instruction in SEL. And so we're spending a lot of our time in our classrooms. Many of our kids are struggling at home on how to log in. How do I find my assignments? How do I access my personalized paths through iReady, through different online Imagine Learning, things like that. And so a lot of those procedures and targeted instruction, you'll see a student on the right who's also getting is in our VI program that is getting specialized attention and has all of his equipment near him to allow that extra support. In the classroom, you'll see the teachers away from all the children, and the children are there, they're separated, they have their learning devices in front of them as well as all their own equipment. But we really have been focusing a lot on SEL lessons, so they all get to do social emotional learning every day when they come in. They open their days with a social emotional learning component, and then they move on and help support the kids with their actual daily work that they're doing in their classrooms. Next slide. This is what snack recess looks like. So you can see there, the picture on the far left is at a middle school where the kids are lining up to receive their lunch or snack, morning snack. And so you'll see that. And then on the playground, the kids have been able, not all the kids want in classrooms are choosing to sit at the picnic table. Some of them are choosing to sit, finding locations where kids can sit comfortably, 6 feet apart. So that's what you see in that middle picture. And in the last picture, you'll see when the kids are at the picnic tables, you'll see that little X next to that one little girl. We are positioning them 6 feet apart, and they need to only face one direction. So picnic tables and lunch tables, if you're used to seeing what our normal picnic tables look like with a full class size, you're seeing this is what it looks like right now in distance learning. And this is what the requirements are as we move back, even in hybrid. Although you can say that the kids are still able to socialize. Here is an example of face masks are a big part of why the children are there, but we want to make sure and we want to ensure that the children's face masks are protective when they're not wearing them. The only time we're really not using them are when we're eating, when we're sitting at the picnic tables. And so you'll see here, there's some various ways. We started on the far left with paper bags and putting the kids' names on them. As we started thinking about them, besides the children wanting to blow them up and pop them, we're imagining on the playground when we are in the middle of a windstorm or the wind blows. Of those of you that have worked on campuses, you all know that everything blows away. And we are imagining brown paper bags and kids' masks just tumbling all over the place. So since then, we have at two different sites we're piloting currently. The little girl in the middle, you'll see that her face mask is clipped to her jacket with a clothespin. And we just really didn't feel the middle schoolers would think that's such a cool thing. So we got them as name badge clips. And so you'll see different kids are using it. They might be using that name badge clip to clip it to their backpack. This particular child decided to clip it to themselves. But basically, we're making sure that there's a place for kids to have their mask where they don't end up on the ground, where they're protected. So that when the kids are done eating, they're ready to put them back on and they're with them and they're not blowing away in the wind. So that's that is. Next slide. And so just wanted to show you what recess looks like. So recess requirements still keeps our social distancing. Kids still need to wear their face masks. And they need to, not only do they have to social distance this way, but they also must stay 25 feet away from any other cohort. So if there's another class out there, that class has to be at least 25 feet away from this class. And so the supervision of that, of making sure that, yes, they're still playing a game and they're still actively, you can see kids are actively moving, but what the games that we're playing, we're having to readjust. And the play that we're having our kids do for socialization, yes, they're out there laughing, you can't hear it or whatever, but you can tell that they are having fun, they're engaged, but they certainly have to keep their 6 feet social distance. That doesn't go away even when we go out on the playground. So this is a great image of a class participating and having a fun time supervised by a teacher, but away from other cohorts while keeping their social distance. And then dismissal looks very different too. So the kids come to the front of the school where we're dismissing them. And as you can see here, we also have places and indications out there where kids are standing 6 feet apart from one another. as well as lined up along the pathway to be picked up. And so we're making sure that our kids are being handed off safely, but we're also making sure that they remain in their social distancing with their masks on and with proper supervision. And then Pam Durham and Aaron Lindsay put together this wonderful video, and I thought that it's a great way to wrap up so that you have an understanding of what's happening.
Evolved into, he was more productive the next day too, so.
I had to do is line up in the lines outside 6 feet away from people, and it has lines out to direct like where people has to stand. And then when you go inside the gates, you gotta get checked by the person who is like when you walk in, and they will ask you what's your name and what's your last name, and when they found out who you are, they will check mark you that you're here, and they will scan your temperature, and if it's good, they will ask you questions, and then when you're done with all those checkups, she will give you a sticker, and you will go to your line. And when you first come in, you have to wash your hands, and then when you finish eating, you have to wash your hands again. And when you are getting dismissed, you have to wash your hands again. So for safety. We do work, and teachers help you catch up with work that you're having like hard time with, or that you like didn't complete. Like a lot of time to do my classwork, so I could catch up with my work and I don't have any missing work. You get breaks, and you sometimes do activity. You go outside, and then you could like bring your own snacks to eat, or you could just go to the cafeteria while you're sitting, and don't sit near close to people, and sit 6 feet away. You're also able to eat with people, but like 6 feet away. And like sometimes teachers make up like games, like a lot of games. Like we sometimes do like Simon Says.
Anything else you feel like people should know about phase 2? I think it's just important to know that, like, even though this is just a little bit and it's a small group of kids, I think what we're doing is super important, and that it's worth all of the extra steps of washing our hands, temperature checks, all that stuff. Like, it's totally worth it. I see the kids eager to come every Wednesday, and to me that means that all of this extra work is worth it.
Thanks, Carrie.
Yeah, and then this is just saying we're creating new ways to support our learners, and you can see even in that PE class, the kids are passing an invisible ball because we can't share equipment. So, thank you.
So we have just a few more slides on the original deck that we'll run through, and we'll, if it's okay with the board, we'll hear your discussion and comments and questions at the end, if that's okay.
Sounds good. Please
Okay.
continue, Allison. Yes.
Great. So we have been providing the update on the county conditions at each meeting. And unfortunately, we know that we're still in that purple tier, widespread incidence of COVID in our community. This is one of the pieces that we're monitoring with our metrics. So going to the next phase, the next slide there. We do have the metrics posted on the district website, and we're moving them into green little by little as we're able to check things off. We're still in process on a lot of these things. And of course, that first metric of community spread is the first one we're always looking at. We have green on parent commitments finalized here on metric 2 because our survey deadline was passed. However, we know that we're still catching up with some families on some of those pieces, and Leslie will talk about that soon. We also have our COVID testing available, and Leslie will provide an update on that shortly as well. Under the next slide, we have completed the certification process that we've been sharing with you for those hub sites, and we're in the process of completing it for additional sites in preparation for phase 3. And hub sites also have completed their site and district checklists, and other sites are working on that in preparation for phase 3. And we have not had any campus closures due to COVID cases at the hub sites. And we didn't highlight, we have had positive feedback about the hubs, but we didn't highlight that additional area of metric 4 because we know that the last meeting we talked about formalizing that feedback a little bit more, not just having anecdotal feedback. So we haven't done that yet, but we know we will be, and then we'll be able to move that into green. Okay, so I'll turn it over to Leslie now.
Great. So thanks to Carrie and her team, as it's noted at the bottom of this slide, the week before we went on vacation, we were able to begin our testing. We thought at first we would just do a pilot, and we had principals that said, you know what, we'll try it. We'll take it on our school sites to see how it works at a school site. And then any staff member that wanted to be tested came to the TRC during that week to be tested. We tested on our own 255 employees. Through that, and obviously, as you know, 255 employees is a small portion of our employee community. And so we do know from that we need to continue to do outreach. We have a calendar in place and are beginning to advertise testing moving forward. We have had some employees through that who tested positive. And so we had opportunities to work with staff to do contact tracing, notify public health department as we are required to, make sure cleaning was in place. If they had close contacts, we went through the process of notifying those close contacts. And provided them with opportunities to be able to quarantine and or isolate at home. I am updating the dashboard weekly. And actually, as cases, if we test or cases come in as positive, I don't necessarily wait till Friday. So I may be updating throughout the week. Our goal right now is to provide testing for staff on a monthly basis, and with the option of, we will try to expand that to do every 2 weeks. That was something that Governor Newsom hopes for. And we continue to provide our families with information about testing locations in the county. We wanted to get our employee testing off the ground before we moved into exploring student testing. And so that's our update on curative testing. The second part here that I'm going to share is information. You can go to the next slide. Thank you, Jeff. Is our parent survey. And so 73% of our community did take the parent survey and indicated their interest or their desire for either full distance learning or hybrid, knowing that while we are in purple, we would not be moving into that. We would only do that when conditions were better across the county and we had met the metrics that Allison just reviewed with you. what that means. And what was interesting is when I separated middle and elementary school to see is there a difference, it's actually the same. It's 56% of our elementary and 56% of our middle, and the same with 44% of elementary and middle. 27% did not take the survey. And so just the other day, we provided our principals with the information of who had taken the survey and what their responses were, as well as our IT department was able to look at that data. And some of the information was inaccurate. So for example, a student ID may not have matched the student number or the student name or the parent name. And so we pulled information related to no responses and responses that potentially had an error within them based on the data someone had put into our survey. And our principals have been diligently reaching out to those families to solicit their responses. And those that have sent me updates are getting great response, which is fabulous. So, you know, if that 27% didn't respond and we placed them in distance learning, it would have been around 68% would have been in full distance learning. We know that's not the case because based on the work that our principals are doing this week and probably into next week, we will probably have adjusted data, school site-based data, and principals will analyze that data to determine what does that look like in each classroom and across the grade levels. Next slide. I think this is Alex.
Yes, so while we're gathering all that additional information, we're reflecting on the feedback that you gave to us about phase 3 and beginning to reshape the plans for what phase 3 could look like. So for this part of the presentation, I want to share with you some of the things that we're thinking about, including our reflection on your feedback from the last meeting. So of course, from the big picture point of view, whenever we're thinking about any of the phases, we're thinking about our strategic plan and what are those moves that will help support what is needed now in the moment, but also help us continue reaching for those elements of our strategic plan that have always been important to us. So we're looking at not just immediate needs, but those longer term pieces, as we talked about at the last meeting. And at this time of year, that also includes thinking about what students might need in the months ahead as they transition to the next school year. At the last meeting, you gave us some very important feedback about what you would hope to see in our beginning phase 3. And the things that we heard from you at that meeting are listed here, we hope. We want to check with you to see if this is the list that you recall, or and see if there's anything that you want to add to it. We heard from you the importance of meeting the needs of students with higher needs and making sure that that good work that we see happening in the hub sites, that some version of that support for higher needs students is available at every school site so that students can benefit from a location that's close to home, a staff that knows them, and that we're addressing those needs that we know are present at all campuses. We also heard from you that we need to take a look at the synchronous time, the teacher time with students. When we started distance learning, we talked quite a bit about this, and we also were operating under the instructional minimum requirements for distance learning. And we've been thinking about that now that this time period is going on longer than we all anticipated. And we've gotten some feedback from you as well as the community on that. So we want to reflect back some adjusted thinking on that at the next meeting. We also heard from you that consistency is really critical, that no matter the school that students attend, that there should be an equitable experience across sites, and that includes consistent schedules and kind of moving along together with those common expectations. We also heard from you that acknowledgement that things are unknown. We don't know yet when that moment will be when we can move further into phase 3. And we also don't know when we may need to move back to phase 2. So that idea of flexibility and having a consistent structure that allows that sense of routine, no matter the phase, will be important. We also heard you say that we are finding some good success in distance learning thanks to the very hard work of our site teams and our families and our kids. And we don't want to have big disruptions to the successes that we're finding in distance learning. So we want to keep those academic blocks as they are, and really build on the success. And for that in-person time, to start with a focus on social emotional learning, the arts, wellness, clubs, student connection. And as we move into phase 3 and consider hybrid options and we sort out the rest of that parent data, once we know if we need to split the student groups into that A-B schedule where kids are coming for a portion of the week, that we need to attend to what that means for families with students at multiple schools. Try to get siblings on the same schedule within the school or across schools whenever possible. And also you encouraged us to continue utilizing those metrics and communicating succinctly and clearly with all members of our community and staff. And to keep in mind that we want to do the very best that we can for our students and avoid having additional costs in the area of staffing, such as in the area of subs, as we're putting our plans together. While this conversation has been happening, we also received the update on the next slide from Governor Newsom, and we have the link there to his full presentation. The good news here is that the highlights on this slide really were the things that we were aiming for anyway. We didn't see a lot of differences from what Newsom was putting out to what we had been thinking for our plan. We will recommend that we adjust the student priority groups based on this information. As one example, the K-6 group here, elementary students, he called out, where we were looking at those our earliest learners initially in our first round. But other than that, really all of these things were things that we had already been planning for. So we'll continue to reflect on that and watch for further updates from the state as we continue planning. Our recommendations for next steps is that we bring details to you on January 21st, reflecting back those principles that you called out at the last meeting, and then anything further you want us to think about after today. As Leslie mentioned, sites are gathering information from families and getting additional survey responses. I'm hearing just anecdotally from principals a lot of great success with that already this week, so that's encouraging. We will be adjusting the schedules and building out those visuals to increase that synchronous time and build in the in-person on-campus time. We'll bring that to you. And to take a look at what we mean by higher needs and make some revisions to that chart. It was the one that Carrie showed you with the blue boxes, and the students had to meet all 3 criteria last time for our hubs, and we want to take a look at that given reflections that we've heard and the feedback regarding the state's priorities. And then of course, continue to monitor those metrics and provide posted updates on the website and updates to you at each meeting. Okay, so I think that's our last slide, and we'd like to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison, and thank you, Leslie and Carrie, for your presentations, and Pam and Aaron for making the videos. I always love seeing these videos from the field. So I'm gonna bring the discussion for now back to the board for a round of clarifying questions. We'll go in the order that we've gone before, and then we'll go over to public comments and then back for any sort of additional comments and questions. So Phyllis, you're first in the queue here. Do you have any questions or comments?
I do not have questions. I just want to say thank you to Allison and Carrie and Leslie. It's just, I'm awestruck by the amount of work you guys have done and how awesome it is. So thank you.
All right.
That's it. No questions.
All right. Thank you, Phyllis. And then Lori.
Yeah, I have a couple, and I want to echo Phyllis's comments. This has been a great update and presentation, and I, like Jerry mentioned, really enjoyed seeing what phase 2 looked like in person. So thank you for all the work to get that ready for us and the community to see. So I think, Leslie, if I understood right, some of the positives that are on our dashboard were actually identified by the testing that we did. So I'm wondering, you mentioned right now we're not sure if we're going to be able to roll it out to every 2 weeks. And I have to imagine that depends on how many of our employees take advantage of the testing. So what is that? What are we anticipating that's going to look like as we, move towards bringing more of our staff back onto our sites, either campuses or yard or office?
I think we will have more concrete information by the end of January.
Okay.
And I say that because the schedule that Carrie has set up for January provides opportunities for testing at some school sites. It provides opportunities for testing at 2 school sites that are drop-in for anyone. It also provides testing at Mary and Vista. So rather than one location TRC, everybody go there, we will have testing available. And our LVNs, there will be testing at all school sites, excuse me. So every school site will have a day for testing, Mary, Vista, and then if you miss testing at any of those, you'll be able to drop in at DeVargas and Nimitz. So I think we'll have a better idea at the end of the month if our number of employees that are testing has increased. And we also know that we have to continue to be able to do a better job at publicizing it to our employees. Not all of our employees have a computer in front of them at all times. They all have email, they all have access to computers and devices, but they may not be let's say on their computer as much as I am. And therefore we want to make sure that we are reaching out to them in multiple ways and making sure they have the information needed to be able to test with ease.
And so a follow on to that, I know that the county and we continue to look at options for this for asymptomatic testing like this is. And so obviously if further opportunities become available for us to move towards more asymptomatic testing, we're poised to do that.
Yeah, and we're in conversation with the county in regards to what other avenues should we be exploring in regards to testing for both employees and for students. And so we're keeping a very open mind with that. And, our goal would be, the recommendation is that you test more frequently. We just have to look at bandwidth and capacity and the ability to get the kits that we need and get the results in a prompt manner. And so, we were excited to be able to launch this, and we are also flexible to grow and expand as needed.
And this is in addition to any sort of symptomatic testing that employees would have access to through healthcare and
Correct.
County sites. Okay.
Exactly. And some of our employees are getting tested through their own healthcare and not using curative. And so the number of cases that like you had said, that have tested positive, some of them were through curative, and some of them, it's almost like an equal number if you could divide 7 in half, right?
Yeah.
That some were positive through our results and some were positive through other avenues.
Yeah, but some of them were asymptomatic and were identified by just routine screening testing, which is great from the standpoint of reducing spread and then being able to contact trace. So I appreciate that a lot. Okay, and then I think my second question is probably for Allison. Thank you, Leslie. Newsom, he emphasized verbally in that initial presentation sort of the idea of younger elementary students. But then I also know in writing it's called out K6. So do we have some more information about what what the goal is there? Is there a differentiation within that band of K6? Are they treating K6 equally across the board? Is there still the emphasis on like our TK through 2? What's the thinking there?
So I'm still learning about all of those pieces, but my takeaway is that he's saying elementary students is the place to start because of the reduced risk of transmission in comparison to older kids. So I think that's the big takeaway. I haven't seen any further breakdown yet, but perhaps some of my colleagues here may have more information.
I can help clarify as well. I think some of that confusion is when the calling out of the grade 6, because for many school districts, grade 6 is considered elementary and ours is a middle school. And so there is a lot of confusion whether does this fall into our requirement or not. And so latest clarification we have is since we operate as middle schools, they do not fall under this direction, but we'll continue to wait here and hear further clarification.
Yeah, because I know in the literature that it's sort of still out as to whether or not to treat the 6th graders like preteen age, or if it's to treat them. Yeah, so, okay. I think you hit on it. Thank you.
Right, thanks, Lori. Let's see, and then Satish, please.
Okay, thank you, Jerry. Thanks, Alison, Carrie, staff, supporting team, everybody. It's a great job, actually. And I think this is the way to go. And I think we are progressing in the right way, both in terms of the taking care of the kids, as well as how the teachers are involving, how the infrastructure is being developed. A great presentation. I think that pictorial representations are always great than just the bullet items, and I love that. The couple of more questions around that, and I see that from the number of hubs perspective, I think it's roughly about 15 hubs or so in the elementary, and around average about 15 between middle and elementary. So each of the hub, you said about 14 kids.
Yes.
So what's the total? How many kids are getting actually participating in this then overall?
Currently, we have over 250 children. There's just over 250 children throughout our district and our hubs, and we are adding to that as seats are becoming vacant.
Okay, so this is based on the current capacity, what we planned, or are we planning to, basically my question here is, are we going to expand this a little bit more? Whatever we call it, a 2C or things like that, which we have been talking for long. So this 200 will become 300 and 400 and so on, or we will be jumping to phase 3 when it is ready.
So the kids that are there right now that are filling the seats, every child that met the criteria that we set in place has been invited to participate. So the seats right now that are being we have children in are all children. We were able to invite every child that met the criteria, the current criteria that we're under. And I'll let Allison talk about expansion.
Right. So we'll bring some information back to the next meeting about how we may be able to expand this. Some of the things that we're thinking about are loosening that criteria a little bit.
Yeah.
So, maybe it's just 2 out of the 3 areas, for example, instead of having to meet all 3. We have a number of students, particularly who are attending class. So that engagement column, are they showing up to class? They're doing that, but they're having, significant needs. So we've definitely heard the feedback that we might need to loosen that criteria in the next phase. Currently in phase 2, all of our wonderful staff members here are volunteers to come back to campus in this phase. And then we have some substitutes. So we said yes, please, to every one of those volunteers who wanted to be part of it. And we're so thankful for their work. And that's our challenge, is we know we need to expand, and we need to figure out how to do that in a way that will address that need for having something on every campus and making sure we have staff to do it. So we'll bring that back on the 21st, some ideas for that.
Okay, in the same context, like continuation of the same thing. Like all the eligible kids, which were eligible students, which we contacted, they are in the plan, or many of them did not come. Only few of them responded, or majority of them responded, or all responded for coming back.
So we got a response from almost 100% of the families. It doesn't mean that they're all are actively engaged, because a lot of families have chosen, as you'll see from our whole district survey, some families want to keep their kids in distance learning for the whole year, right? So we have some of those. And then once we got into the purple tier, we did have children, many children drop. We had a handful, not many, but some of our children dropped out at the point when we moved into the purple tier, because they were kind of like stay-at-home orders and families are being extra cautious. And so we are, based on that information, that's why we're beginning to start adding a few other kids that have popped up as becoming more and more needy as we've gone through time.
Okay, I think I have, that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, great. Thanks, Satish. And then Sylvia, please.
So Carrie, I had a follow-up for Satish's question. With those students, because they're both at risk academically and they're low engagement, right? So if they're starting to drop off because of purple tier or because they've been traveling, how are we continuing to meet meet their needs, or making sure that they're able to be serviced, or able to be taught, or like not falling through the cracks, I guess.
I think we have consistent follow-up from teachers checking on them, site administration. And the other thing that's big is we're hoping that the hub support that they already have had has taught them how to access. For many of our kids in the first couple of weeks, they didn't even know how to log on to their system, to join their meets, to gain their assignments. And so we have spent a considerable amount of time teaching kids, how do you get onto your Google Classroom? How do you log in, and teaching them that? And so our hope and goal is that continuous progress, because as they're becoming more familiar and understand how to navigate the system, it's becoming a little bit easier. Some of them just didn't understand it, and they really needed somebody just to guide them through that process. They needed somebody to hold their, not hold their hand because we're 6 feet away from each other, but they needed somebody to step them through that process. Like, here's your login. And so we've handed the kids their logins. We've handed them all this information, not that their teachers didn't, but a lot of them received it digitally. So when we were able to give them a physical copy of their QR code or of their login number, that they could walk home and take it with them. So some of those pieces I think have been really beneficial. And so our hope is through the process that we're doing that is also increasing their work when they're not in school with us. And so, just teaching them access. It's really about access.
Is that something that we can help with the families as well? Is that like you say, like if there's like digital access issues or education or foundational knowledge needed, is that something where the parents need support in that way?
So I do know at various sites, there's a lot of staff doing that. We're providing like that workshop where it'd be online, where we're getting them on a meet, we're talking to them on the phone and teaching them how to get on that meet, so then we can show them how to do that visually. So I do know some of that is already happening throughout our district in the aids of that. When I was the principal at Nimitz, right, we had a lot of families that did that. And so we put up extra PPE. The school district provided extra PPE for me at my site, so we could meet just one-on-one with some of those families to do that kind of outreach. And so when it's needed, where they're like, I just need somebody to show you, we are making accommodations. People are masking up, gearing up, PPEing up, and meeting with families to teach them how to do that.
Okay.
It's definitely
great. Thank you. Thanks. My next question is for, I think, Leslie. So or maybe Allison, maybe it's Leslie. So the 56%, the parent survey, so you said it was 56% wanted distance learning and then 44% wanted hybrid. And then that kind of translated to 68% distance learning and then 32% hybrid. Is that, oh yeah, there it is, sorry.
Yeah. Let me clarify. So out of the families that responded to the survey, which was 73% of our community. So those responses that we got on this second survey, 56% of them said they wanted full distance learning. 44 said, when the metrics are met, or maybe some even wanted it before, but 44% selected hybrid. There was 27% that did not take the survey. And if by default we were to say, we're not going to reach out to you, we're not going to see what you want, which is not what we've done. If we were to take the 56% and those that did not respond to the survey and bundle them together, it would have been about 68% that would remain in full distance learning. Instead of doing that, we said to our principals, hey, you've got the list of people, and we had some inaccurate data. Can you please reach out to them, find out what model they want? So they're reaching out to 27% of the community via email, via phone calls. They're answering, and collaborating with them to get them the information that they need. Therefore, we hope that in the next couple weeks, we will have 100% of our community that has given input.
I see. Okay.
If a family can't make a decision, we will leave the child in full distance learning until which time the parent says, okay, I actively want you to consider moving them to a hybrid model.
I see. Okay. All right.
A little confusing, but
Okay, no, that makes sense. Thank you for clarifying that. Okay. And then my last question is about the increase in synchronous time, which I am totally on board for, which is awesome. So my question is timing. So are we looking at, because I know, elementary schools are on the trimester system, middle schools are on the semester system. Are we kind of trying to time that with the grading periods, or what are we looking at in terms of that?
Yes, I do think that we need a little bit more time to check in with our principals about that piece of things, because we haven't yet had a chance to share that thinking with them in detail since of the timing of the winter break. So I think by the next meeting, we'll be able to share with you visually what we are thinking about that, as well as the timing. I'm not sure yet if we would want to move at the same pace for elementary and middle. We have gotten some staff feedback as well about just the way the schedules are working. And so we just want to take all of that into account as we frame the next revision and bring it to you at the next meeting.
All right. Those are my questions, Jerry.
All right, great. Thanks, Sylvia. Let's see. So my first question is around staff testing, building on what Lori had asked. And this is a sort of a question we had gotten, which is there's some sort of an FDA advisory that talks about curative being really, it's a negative test doesn't rule out COVID. And it talks about some of the swab tests being really used for symptomatic individuals. And so the question that we had gotten was around, then are we using it that way? Are we using it for asymptomatic tests? I think there was just some confusion on that. That was a question we had gotten. I was wondering if we could get a little bit more clarification on sort of our policies there and the way that we're using curative.
So I'll jump in on that one, and then if Carrie or Leslie want to add anything onto it. So there was a notification from FDA regarding the curative and some questions as far as the application and whether it came out with a false negative. We actually just received within the last hour from our county and superintendent an update on that the FDA has cleared it. Curative really is designed to be an asymptomatic test. And so when we are looking at our employees and individuals, if they are showing the symptoms, they really are encouraged to go to the healthcare. But curative is designed to be an asymptomatic test. And so very positive that we just received that it's cleared and we're okay to use it. And so most of the districts in the county will continue using curative. With that, though, we'll still continue. I know that Governor Newsom highlighted a particular vendor that could be used for schools. And so we are exploring that as well as we move forward.
All right. Well, thanks. Yeah, that's really great to hear, to get this clarification, just in terms of peace of mind for our staff. And my second question then is around the governor's plan. So I guess, since it's been published, there's been I think one of the superintendents of one of the local districts was quoted in the press in terms of saying, well, there are too many restrictions. I think the superintendents of some of the largest urban districts in our state have put out statements about it's inadequate funding, et cetera, et cetera. I just wanted to sort of understand, based on our current understanding of the governor's plan, it's our intention to comply with the provisions of the plan and all that. Is that the case? I just wanted to sort of understand where we are, because I'm reading all these different things in the press from these other districts, what our position is with respect to that.
Yeah, and absolutely that opportunity that there could be some additional funding is definitely would be an assistance for us. And as we looked at our 4 phases and where we're moving forward with our in-person, based on where we're getting the interpretation from what Governor Newsom has announced, we are on track to continue and to meet those. I think the biggest challenge that we're going to face as many districts is the requirement to do the testing every 2 weeks. And if it drops below a certain level of COVID cases in your area, then you would be required to test every week. And so I really think that is our big challenge. I think with Carrie and her department, what they're working out in January to try to increase the amount of testing will be helpful. But just the ability for staffing to be able to do testing that frequently on that many employees will be our challenge. And so, fortunately, I think we have some time to work on getting that in place. And if there's that additional funding that comes in, that can also be an assistance. But I would say we are on track to meet those goals if that should come to fruition.
All right, okay, great, thank you. Let's see, so do we want to make another round for questions before going to comments? Do maybe put your hand up if you have any other questions? I'm sweeping around. If not, then so let's go to public comments then, and then we can always come back for more questions. And so, Leslie, do we have any speakers that's turning cards?
Yes, we do. We have 4 speakers, so I'll read those names. If you would raise your hand, and then Jerry will call you in order. So our first speaker is Priya Shastri, followed by Michael Rogers, followed by Noah Matzleich. I apologize if I pronounced it wrong. Followed by Emily Adams.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Leslie. So I see Priya, I see you here, so please go ahead. Welcome.
Hi, it's nice. Happy New Year, first of all, and nice seeing you all again. So I see that the parcel tax has some additional changes to it. Like the amount was changed to $398 from the earlier $250 per house. So is that final, or would there be a change based on the survey that you're taking?
I'm sorry, we don't respond to questions during public comments. So, and this item is actually on school reopening. We have previously talked about parcel tax. So
Okay. On school reopening, my only concern is that when the kids come back to school, I see that there are specific signs on maintaining the social distancing and wearing the masks and reconvening in smaller groups. Will that, how will you enforce it? Will you make sure that the kids are allowed to enter the campus in a smaller ratio, in a smaller number every week, every day?
If you could continue with all your comments and questions, and then we'll discuss them at deliberations after this.
That's about it. That's my question.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And then Michael, if you could put your hand up. There you are. So, all right, so let's go ahead and unmute Michael, and welcome, Michael.
Thanks for your time tonight. Let me know if you can't hear me adequately. I've been monitoring the board meetings for a while and going over the materials offline. I've been very involved in COVID. I'm a very technical person, historically working in the semiconductor business for decades. I've been very involved at the county level, engage with the state and public media and other political groups. So I had a couple questions. One is, why are the Cupertino School District metrics and requirements set at more stringent levels than the county and state for enabling in-person schooling? The orange tier is actually 2 levels more stringent than the current state and county requirements for in-person classes, particularly for school districts that have previously applied for and been a part of the waiver process or have already initiated even just pilot programs of in-person schooling. We've got public schools in our area that have been open for 3 or more months with little or no adverse effects or unnecessary risks, and many more private schools that have been going on for quite some time without any outbreaks. Empirical data across the U.S. and across Europe really indicate that we have a ton of empirical data for in-person schooling, K through 12 being very low risk for COVID transmission, and there's some very physical reasons why K through 6 is very low risk. Dr. Sherry Cody did a nice 10-slide presentation on November 17th, a copy of which I forwarded to some of you by email within the last couple of weeks, showing her studies in the very almost near zero incidence of any clustering at all, and usually typically within a staff or within a family group. So, you know, there is known reasons why there's a physical reason, not just correlation on that data. There's a causative effect scientifically in the biology of the manifestation of the ACE2 receptors, which the virus attaches to, really manifests at much later age, generally middle school for most kids. So that matches the data sets across the world in terms of schooling, in terms of childhood incidence and transmission of the disease. So a second question I have, since I'm running out of time, is, when you come back in 2 weeks and look at the schedule, you should consider that by March, school teachers and staffs will have adequate ability and access to vaccines that would make this even an orders of magnitude lower risk than it would be for schooling today. And I think you ought to consider that when looking at the schedule and the incidence of when staff will be vaccinated. And finally, I am sorry to report that my grandson, my daughter, made a decision today to withdraw him from the kindergarten remote schooling at Eisenhower School for a number of reasons. Basically, it was totally inadequate for a number of reasons. And I'm sorry to report that. It's something I was.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael, for sharing your comments with us. Our next speaker is Noah. So Noah, welcome.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. So thank you for letting me speak today. I want to say thank you for all the staff and the teachers for the phase 2 operations. I heard your presentation, it looks great. And I think now everyone can see that in-person learning is not out of reach for all students that want to. And according to the survey which I know is not finalized, but having small cohorts will be easier and available. So having said all that, why won't you go ahead to open phase 3? Why not remove matrix 1, or at least move to the matrix to red tier? I think orange is really out of reach at the moment and will put us behind. And also, why do you want to go back if you go back to purple? That doesn't make any sense and is not consistent with the state guidelines. Once open, we should stay open, exactly like the phase 2 hubs are still open. As my previous speaker mentioned, we can all see the numbers, and we've all read studies and testimonials. Schools are not super spreaders. K-6 are not super spreaders. Even our governor, Mr. Newsom, is urging all counties and even willing to give financial aid in order for you to reopen our schools. Teachers are next in line to be vaccinated, and there are a lot of teachers willing to come even without the vaccine, as you can see in the teachers survey. Our kids are falling behind, while other districts and private schools are already open. Please open our schools. You are failing our kids academically and also socially. School is not all about academics. Our kids want to be in school and to see their friends and to make connections. Please, why not reach to Palo Alto superintendent or to other districts to hear from them? How are they opening school? What exactly are the guidelines they are putting in, and what is their district doing to make the staff safe and the kids safe and everyone safe? Please, I don't see any reason why you should not go forward with opening our school. Please. I'm begging of you. I see so many families, so many friends pulling their kids out of the Cupertino County and putting their children in private schools. We don't want to do that. We love our teachers. We love our schools. Please don't make us move to other districts. Please, please open our schools. Please. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Noah, for speaking tonight. Our final speaker then is Emily. Emily, if you could raise your hand. There you are. Okay. So welcome, Emily.
Hello, thank you. I'm going to be really brief because Jerry, I think you actually already answered my question. First, I'm a CUSD middle school science teacher. I'm also a mother, a community member. My niece and nephew are in this school district. I have 2 school-age children myself. It's such a challenging time. My question was about the curative testing and just wanting to make sure as we are trying our dearest to get our kids back to school that we have an FDA approved test. And I feel that you asked that question. I feel that that question was somewhat answered. So I'll be really brief. But I've also listened to my fellow community members and, you know, I'm one too. And I just maybe will use my remaining time to not ask about curative and just thank all of you guys for doing the best that you can and acknowledging the struggle. So thank you kindly. And thank you, Jerry, for already asking and answering my question.
All right. Thank you, Emily, for speaking tonight. Are these all the speakers, Leslie?
Yes, so those were all the speakers that were presented when the item was called.
Great. All right, thank you. All right, I'm going to bring the discussion then back to the board for another round of any sort of questions or final comments, or not final, but just comments, I guess. We'll end when we end. So Phyllis, please.
Yeah, I just had a comment about Carrie's presentation. I'm very impressed, Carrie, with what's going on in our classrooms and the way that the teachers are managing the kids and all the protocols that are in place. And I just, I guess I am not envious of you moving forward as we bring more kids on board. It just sounds like a huge job to me. So kudos to you and good luck, because I want our kids back in school, but I just think it's going to be a huge job, and I think you're doing a great job. So thanks.
The principals are doing a wonderful job with probably themselves, maybe a secretary or two, helping them mark up their campuses, because it really is about the visual markings, and it's a lot of bending over and crawling on the ground.
Well, like I say, it's really great. And I just hope it works out really well as we bring kids back, because I think the protocols are wonderful.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Phyllis. Lori, do you have anything to?
Okay, so I did just want to reflect when Allison was on slide 12, she kind of asked if it had captured, you know, our concerns and our thinking. And so I just want to reflect on that yes, you know, really you did capture exactly where I think my concerns were last meeting or last time we talked about this subject. You know, my priority remains with, even while we're in purple right now, doing what we can to expand our phase 2 to reach any and all of our students as we can, who are either failing at our middle schools and or are failing to meet benchmark and grade level at our elementary schools, and working to expand what we can do with our phase 2 there. You know, for moving into phase 3, certainly increasing the synchronous time, I think is a great work in progress. I'm glad to hear that that's what you guys are looking at revisiting. You know, I think that is one that, you know, as we continue to refine what's working well and what we still can do to address ongoing concerns and needs and really what's best for our students, I would love to see us continue to refine that and work towards ensuring that more consistent schedule across classrooms and across school sites, because I think the feedback we hear is variable there. I know there are many families and students that are really reporting that it's working really well for them, and also families and students that are requesting more synchronous time. So I'm glad we're looking at what we can do there. I do just want to reflect on, you know, the bullet, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down, that really the focus, as we're able to bring back cohorts, focusing on that whole child and that social emotional well-being continues to be a priority for me. You know, the feedback I'd continue to give you there is that even if all we can do is get to outdoor opportunities there, you know, I continue, as I think many do, with the data and the evidence around indoor spaces, you know, have concerns there, especially with being able to meet the ventilation requirements, but anything we can do to make opportunities available and utilize our outdoor spaces, even if it's just weather permitting, I would love to see us expand those opportunities as best we can. And the one thing that isn't necessarily on here, and I think it's probably largely just because it's not a design principle for phase 3 so much as a concern for me before the end of the year, would be sort of making sure that anything we need to do to sort of pilot or test systems that we may need both for planning for the rest of this year, but also then into next year, would be something I want us to have our eyes on, as well as I know that staff is already hard at work on assessing summer school concerns. So I hope that as you guys get more information there about any sort of work that we may be able to do around that, I know cost is going to be an issue for us, but wherever we can and whatever opportunities there are for us for funding for summer school, obviously that's going to be of a big concern for, especially for reaching our highest needs learners. So that would be my thinking on that. And I think that is it for me. So thank you so much for this update.
Thank you, Lori. And then we have Satish. Go ahead, please.
Thanks, Jerry. I think as mentioned that we are going the right way. And my few points here is like one is like I think overall in general the increase in the confidence level, right? Both whether it's for the students, parents, or the teachers, right? So I think 2-3 ways which we can definitely, I think we need to see that rather than just jumping from this 250 to 15,000, we will, or whatever the percentage going to be, even you know, in-person learning in phase 3. I would like to see something like a incremental effort, like, you know, going to the next step, like expanding. And I think already, Alison, you mentioned that we will be probably a little bit, we'll be looking to the criteria, but I like that actually to see that like how we can expand it for more needy students, right? So go in steps like in terms of probably to 250 to 500 or to 750, whatever it is. So expanding or increasing our capacity basically, okay, to and at the same time, the challenge could be the number of staff. I think in the slide 6, what we have is the staffing level, actually, the metrics, the metric 2 actually is the required staffing level, right? I think the required staffing level is again, you know, about 48% of our staff is, at least in the survey, they said that they are interested in coming back if we provide 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So that 1, 2, 3, 4, we have to really look into that, what is needed and how we can increase that 48% to 68%, for example, something like that, right? So basically increasing the confidence within the staff community, supporting staff or whoever it is, like, you know, however the school to run, sufficient staffing. And for that, like, you know, maybe increasing our testing. I know that you have been trying that and we could do only in 1 month, probably 255, but still it's not bad, my view. Out of 1,600 staff, what we have, 255 people attended in the first month or first 15 days. That's a good number, my view. And I hope, you know, next few weeks we'll have more staff, you know, taking the test. And this will definitely increase, I think, the confidence level. And the way which you all are doing, you know, the infrastructure support within the, you know, each of the classroom and the school environment, it's amazing actually. These all, I think, will help us to increase the participation more and more, and the confidence building within staff and within the community. I'm sure that we will do a good job on that, and thank you for that. And please, I think these 2-3 items which I said, I would like to definitely see some improvement. Appreciate it. Thank you. That's all, Jerry.
All right, thank you, Satish. And then Sylvia, please go ahead.
So also just want to extend my thanks to Carrie, the team, and the staff, all the work that's gone into the learning hubs and the planning. Um, you know, it's great to see the photos and the videos and to see it all in action. It's honestly, it's also a little sad. You know, it's sad to see the kids sitting there so far apart, and it's not the same. You know, school in person is not the same as what it was. And so you know, it's just life is different now. And so I think for me it'll be interesting to see the scalability of it as it expands and as we bring more students into it. I'll be interested in looking what that looks like when it grows. um, uh, as I reflect, definitely similar to Lori, concerned about the students that are falling behind, concerned about the students that are not doing well, the ones that we know that, you know, with the students that are doing well, they're doing really well, and the ones that are not doing well are not doing well. And so making sure that we are providing the services and not letting them fall through the cracks, whatever that looks like, whether that's through learning hubs, whether that's through one-on-one time, whether that's through some other means of making sure that those students stay engaged through phase 2, phase 3, through synchronous time or office hours or whatever that is. And so just making sure that we're catching that. I think that's important. The SEL is super important for me as well, as the students come back or as they, whatever phase that is, as we bring them together on campus or outside or whatever that is, to make sure that there's some sort of socialization. So yeah, I mean, just thanks for the efforts, thanks for the work that you're doing, and good luck.
All right, thank you, Sylvia. Of first, I really want to echo my colleagues' comments about just the gratitude for all the time and the effort you put in preparing the report. Carrie, I really enjoyed your presentation. I think seeing the images, seeing the videos, and really hearing directly from the teachers and the students, I think makes it's a world of difference. And so thank you. It really brings home all the work that's gone into this, way more than the usual text PowerPoint shows up. So thank you to Pam and Aaron and Carrie for being here tonight to share that with us. I did want to ask one question. It's really reflecting some of the points that the speakers brought up. And I think if I were to summarize the theme, I think there's a question around sort of maybe the difference between our opening criteria and the county state recommended ones in terms of purple, orange, and so forth. And I was wondering, Stacy, if you could maybe say a few words about sort of our rationale and sort of philosophy for having the kind of criteria that we do. Would you be able to comment a few words on that?
Yeah, so I think, you know, in retrospect, as we developed the whole 4 phases, and that was prior to the colors of the county coming out, our goal really had been to put in implemental stages where we are able to put the safety and health pieces in place. And I don't know that we're that far off from other districts. You know, we stay in close contact with all of the districts within our county and have our weekly meetings, so we know what they're doing. I think everybody is offering some form of an in-person as much as possible. Some districts are able to do it at a faster rate as they've hired some extra staffing. But I do think we are aligned with what others are doing. Our intent, of course, is to get back as much in person. The other piece is really making that commitment that we did last fall that we would stay in the distance learning until January. And, you know, I think that the mindset has been, we would continue to honor that. We know that we're moving into a different phase. And it is really difficult right now to have some of the discussions and the planning, knowing that we're sitting in purple, hearing, you know, daily on the news that there's a surge in the COVID. Just got an update about 10 minutes ago that they're now changing the travel restrictions, and it's 120 miles from home versus 150. So just continuing to try to update that and really balance what is best for our students and our staff. And
you know, we're hearing the stories from our teachers that are saying, you know, they want to come back, but they're concerned about their health and their safety. And, you know, the other fear is if we move too fast, then we're going to have an uptick in our own COVID cases. And we don't have the staff availability to bring in extra subs, because throughout the county, we all share the same common subs. So I think among our entire county, as all their districts are meeting, we are all looking at that. What will happen if we move too fast? And then we're going to all be reverting back into a non-in-person due to lack of staffing. So I know for some parents it's frustrating because we haven't moved as fast as they would like. I think hearing the feedback, it really is our goal. We will look at reevaluating what our criteria is, if there's opportunities to get more students in, continue to do that slow. We were fortunate that we were able to start that in person in November before we shifted into this purple. So it does allow us to continue planning, and we'll continue. We'll continue to go slow. We continue to look at everybody's health. And, you know, again, I think Allison, I think Carrie and Leslie, all the departments have done an amazing job in getting us to where we are in such a large district.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Stacy, for that sort of that in-depth insights into sort of our operating philosophy here. And then I think for me, just reflections is really a number of plus ones to what my colleagues have talked about. I certainly very much like to see the increase in the synchronous learning, synchronous time for the distance learning. I think a number of Lori, Sylvia, I think a number of folks brought that up. I like that. And I think you know, there's an item here about focusing the whole child for in-person time. And I would just ask, maybe we think about, if we weren't able to have the in-person time, what are the things we can do to address some of these social emotional arts wellness clubs? So being able to do that, if we weren't able to be in person, is something I like to see us spend some time on. But then, you know, really other than that, I think these are all good. It looks like we had talked about last time that we would do an evaluation on the 19th. That's 12 days from now. I don't see us going from purple to orange in 12 days, given where things are. So I think that then we would go on to the next evaluation date, which is sometime mid or late April, or mid-February, right? So yeah. But yeah, no, otherwise, yeah, great job. I know we say this a lot, but it's really heartfelt. There's a lot of designing the airplane while it's flying going on here. So when you see that, the plane's flying great. I guess just one other thing is, a couple of meetings ago, we had a report on some of the assessment results for English language arts, and was wondering if it was possible to do that for math at one of these future meetings. That would be really great, just to sort of share with the community how we're doing on the academic front. With that, then, I just wanted to see if there's any other comments or questions from folks before we close out this item. If not, then thank you. Thanks, everyone. This was a pretty major item. A lot of work went into it. Very much appreciated. All right, so moving on to an action item here on item 12.1. This is the approval of the English language learning master plan, which we reviewed last board meeting. So I'll turn it over to Stacy and Allison.
So we didn't make any changes based on feedback, or lack of feedback, I guess, on the proposal and the presentation last week. So it's presented as is.
Okay, so this is an action item. So I think we need to take a vote. Unless, I'm sorry, are there any questions this time? If not, then I would entertain a motion to approve this plan.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Satish. And do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Phyllis. So let's go ahead and do a voice vote. So all in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, motion passes 5-0. So we'll approve the English Learner Master Plan. And then going on to then item 13, board and superintendent activity and committee reports. Let's maybe just go in the order that we have here. So Phyllis, do you have anything to share?
I do. I just have a quick report on the Parcel Tax Campaign Committee. We're moving forward with the survey instrument, the website that Dan has described to us on a couple of instances. Yesforcusd.org is the website. And we're in the process this month of distributing. Our goal is to hit every family in the district with a flyer that points them to that website, gives them a little information about the district and about the measure, and then points them to the website so that they can indicate their support. The principals, the teachers, the administrative staff of the district office have been wonderful in making sure that this happens. The teachers, we've asked the teachers or the staff that are passing out the flyers to actually make personal contact with the parents and make a comment to them about how important it is that they visit that website. So we'll see. Hopefully in 2 weeks, I'll have a report for you about how many people actually responded on the website to that. And we also have a parent lead at every site. Thank you, Stacy, for getting those together for us. And we have a parent volunteer that's working with those leads. We have a ton of parents, a lot of them, I think I saw their names out in our group today that is attending this meeting that have stepped up to volunteer. So we have a parent lead at every school and a number of volunteers that are stepping up. So things are moving forward. We'll see how it goes. I'll keep you posted.
All right, wonderful news. And thanks to all the parent leads that stepped up to volunteer for this. It's a huge thing. Lori.
Okay, so I'll just tag on to Phyllis and say I will also be working on the ballot argument signers coming up here. So if anybody has any ideas or thoughts around that, feel free to have a convo with me. Happy to do that. Would love to hear your ideas for that. And then let's see. Stacy, Sylvia, and I met with a couple of our legislators over break. And we're continuing to work our way through either a first or a second round with all 6 of our local state representatives, including reach out to our newly elected state representatives and establishing good relationships with their offices and staffers. And then let's see, I feel like, I got to do a virtual visit with some teachers in the 3rd grade at DeVargas this past week, working on PBL and getting ready for a virtual field trip to the McClellan Ranch Preserve. So that was really neat. They're doing a creek unit. And just some really creative work going on, including the docents at some of our local sites like McClellan Ranch, who are partnering with our teachers to make those sort of together apart learning opportunities available for our students. So really neat stuff. And the DeVargas teachers that I was lucky enough to visit with are also continuing to mentor and work with a former student teacher who is now subbing for our district. So just great learning opportunities all around, both for our student learners as well as even for some of our adult learners. So that was a lot of fun and really appreciate that. And that is all I have.
All right, well, thank you, Lori. Thanks to the 3 of you for sacrificing part of your break for advocacy for our district. Let's see, so Satish.
Oh, no, I don't have anything. Yeah, I think I had a good break, probably. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And then Sylvia, did you have anything to share?
No.
Okay. I don't have anything to share either. So it's a good thing Phyllis and Lori are really busy over break. So thank you for that. And Sylvia, of course, for your visits. All right, so moving on then to the last item on the agenda, 14.1 agenda setting. So our next meeting is January 21st. It's actually a board advance, so that'll be during the day for those of you watching would like to follow. But generally, our study sessions are during the day because of the length of time and all that. Are there anything people wanted to add for not just next week, but really next meeting, but really the rest of the, anything on the agenda calendar?
I thought the meeting on the 21st was going to be late afternoon on into the evening. Do I have the wrong times on that?
You are correct. We're looking at starting it later in the afternoon at probably at 3 o'clock is what we're proposing to do, and then go into the evening so that we can do some of our regular business in the evening.
That's right. I have forgotten. Thank you. Thank you for the reminder, Phyllis. Yes.
Okay. And no, I have no agenda items. So thank you.
All right. Thank you. Anyone else? All right. If not, then we'll go on to adjournment. So I'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting at 8:37 p.m. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you.
Bye-bye.